So, we're going to discuss the anti-free speech movement in the first world using Jordan Peterson as an example today with his explanation of what happened with the court judgment yesterday. We're going to talk about anti-American forces outside this continent, China, George Soros, what their plans are, what their motivations are. We're being attacked from all sides. We have enemies that are external and internal. And it's not just America. The whole NATO organization, the Western world, is under attack, and it's these large pools of money are funding all of it. So you're starting to see global organization in these multinational, multi-hundreds of billions of dollar net worth companies, where they are using their money, which is really just a way of tracking how much power you have in the world. They're leveraging these huge pools of power and making their force known against your freedom, against good things for you, against your ability to speak and interact with other human beings in the world. So we have to stand up and we have to do it now. We really do.
Hello, everyone. I've been awaiting a court decision in Canada with regards to the Ontario College of Psychologists' decision to require me to be re-educated in relationship to my social media use or to lose my license. The court ruled today in favor of the college.
That's how they get around it. Oh, we're not making it a law, but you'll lose your ability to generate an income. And that's how they did it with the mandates for us as well. Oh yeah, no, it's not legally required, so it's okay. But it's a condition of employment, and clearly if you want to survive in today's money-based world, you need to be employed. So
they claimed that I have the right to free speech in Canada, but subject to apparently whatever limitations the college wants to place on me, and by implication every other professional in Canada, and by implication every other citizen of Canada. The full response to that, my full response to that, or my full initial response to be more accurate, we'll release that tomorrow. So stay tuned, and I hope you find it useful and interesting. Hello, everyone.
oh man, I know it's Canada, but it's right next door. And they are using all the tools that they have against people like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Alex Jones, Donald Trump, anybody that's not fully invested in selling you the shared lie, the shared vision of absolute BS that they're trying to make you believe, and successfully in the case with a lot of people that watch mainstream media, because they have become very good at putting out what they despise, which is misinformation, propaganda, all the things that they say conspiracy theorists are guilty of. You can clearly see it coming out, of billion-dollar organizations. And then fact checkers just back them up and say, oh yeah, that's true. It's all lies and it's all manipulation. And people are waking up as they push the agenda to even more extreme places. It becomes more clear that they are lying. Because when they make accusations and people listen to something or look at something and say, this is clearly not the situation. We're being told it is. But when you actually take just a tiny little fraction of your time to investigate the actual details, you can clearly see that it's a hoax. We can't say conspiracy because that's what we get told that we're doing. So let's call theirs a hoax. They're putting out hoaxes and absolute evil lies that are just undermining our way of life.
Biggest concern with China on where they were before, where they are now, Are they becoming more powerful? Are they getting weaker? Because there's a community of people that are saying behind closed doors, China's not doing as good as people think. This whole concept of the one-child family that they did, they backfired on them because they're getting older. People are leaving. They're not even sticking around anymore. Billionaires are leaving. Job creators are leaving. That thing's about to collapse. Is it a real threat as it was before? Are they getting weaker? What are your thoughts on China?
It's the greatest existential threat this country in the world faces. That is clear. Let me let your folks know. It's like I started writing about this back in 2006. I wrote a trilogy of books: The Coming China Wars. In 2006, Death by China, which was both a book and a film, in 2011, and just before I went in the Trump administration, Crouching Tiger. The first two books were about the economic threat. The last book was about the military threat. Now, the punchline here is that as bad as I said it was in those three books, as much crap I took from the legacy media and all the kind of like, oh, no. I'm the guy who had a top level, unlike Hunter Biden, I got a top level security clearance. I get to see the highest level stuff. Without giving any secrets away, I can tell you that whatever I said about China in my books is far worse. Far worse. And if you just, here's the thing, it's like,
they have a clear plan for 2040 to supersede the U.S. And they have a cohesive vision. They are united by a leader that does not have any term limits and plans to execute this vision. They are being prepared for a potential conflict with the U.S. Their population is being discouraged and is forcibly being told to embrace masculinity, be manly, be strong, be tough, work out, do all the things that somehow the media in this country and the social media platforms are telling you are bad things to do. Be manly, be tough, be aggressive, improve your body, keep your mind strong, all these things that just are like, do you want to be a good human? You want to be the best human you can be, or you want to just be a lazy piece of shit that watches trash on Netflix? You know, you want reality TV and junk food and sitting on your couch, or working out, challenging your mind, reading books, exploring your own psychology, understanding yourself, improving your mental health. You know, here's a full package. Why would the government not want awesome citizens that care about themselves, care about their country, are fully invested and present? Instead, they're encouraging you to be apathetic and shitty and listless and to suckle off the system. You know, yeah, you don't need to work. AI is going to replace you soon anyway. Why don't you guys just get your little hover chairs or your mobility scooters and just start shoving shit in your faces until you can't move? You know, does that seem someone who's encouraging you to do that? Is that someone that you want to listen to?
I was with President Trump by his side when he went face to face with the dictator Xi Jinping, right? And one of the advantages they have is that they don't have elections, right? So their team, right? Their team is the same team when we faced them as it was with Biden, right? I sat face to face with these guys, and what Trump tried to do, and I think it was the right thing to do given the political climate at the time. I wanted to come in hard. It's like, you know, these people, you can't trust them. Just put the tariffs on them and make them stop doing what I called the 7 deadly sins, all the crap they do to steal our jobs in factories. And then he said, no. We're gonna steadily put on some tariffs, but we're gonna try to cut a deal with them. And, you know, in Buenos Aires, we sat face to face. In Osaka, Japan, we sat face to face at the G20. And all we learned, my friend, is that they're just stringing us along. That whenever you sit to negotiate with them, they'll agree pretty much to anything. And then at the end of the day, they just wait you out and they break every agreement you set. So you can't. So the policy needs to be, and I think President Trump was clearly going to adopt this as soon as that second term began, is what we call decoupling. Decoupling the U.S. economy. I don't know if you know this, but the trade deficit we have with communist China, never call it China, it's communist China, let's be clear about what it is about roughly equal to their defense budget. So in effect, every time we go into Walmart, Target, and buy that crap, which usually is stolen designs from American designers,
Yeah.
we're funding what is an incredible arsenal pointed at our Navy in particular in the South and East China Sea.
So George H.W. Bush, the first one, started this process. Clinton saw it realized, and these agreements were signed that allowed for the outsourcing of manufacturing in the United States. And in doing so, we have spent the last 25 years or more building skills in the Chinese workforce, sending tons and tons of money over there that otherwise would have stayed in America, and built American factories, American infrastructure, built American communities around the jobs that were created. So you'd have thriving communities around industrial and technological centers, just like you have in Beijing and different places in China. You'd build the American infrastructure, you'd train the American workforce, you would improve the American way of life, and instead, we've been doing all that for China and giving them our intellectual property because they manufacture everything that we have, so they know every last detail about it. They don't need to take it apart and reverse engineer it. We're asking them to build it and giving them the plans voluntarily. A lot of American companies have to surrender all IP to the CCP if they want to manufacture in China. So they want that money so bad, they're voluntarily giving all of it away to China. And if China decides that they are done with our shit, they could kick every single corporation out, retain all the documentation, all the manufacturing infrastructure, and just kick out the executives. They keep the workers, they keep the workforce, they keep just the people that are running the Apple factory or the Tesla factory or you name it. They just say, yep, you're going back to America. You don't take anything. You don't go back to your house. You're done. We're putting you on a plane and we're shipping you back home. You're not welcome here anymore. In which case, we now have to compete with the Chinese manufacturing system that we built. This is how we won World War II. It was a war of attrition. The Japanese ran out of planes and pilots. They couldn't train them and manufacture planes fast enough, so their kamikaze tactic really backfired on them, and eventually they just lost more and more assets because they were throwing them at us. We don't have the workforce trained. We don't have the infrastructure built. We're facing this with the chip shortage, with the pharmaceutical shortages from the situation that unfolded as a result of lockdowns and travel bans and all this stuff. We are way behind the 8 ball, and we need 5 to 10 years to even start to fix the lack of American manufacturing capability, the lack of training in our workforce. There's nothing that we have. Not anything that to do with manufacturing. We only have the designs and executives that are currently overseeing factories overseas. So we are not in a real protracted conflict. We are screwed hard.
And the threats are many and varied, but you just start with asymmetric warfare. What is that? That's being able to sink a $5 billion aircraft carrier with a $1 million missile. Okay? They've got, there's a chapter in my Crouching Tiger book, missiles are us. I mean, they got more missiles than any country in the world. It's like, as Stalin said, quantity has a quality of its own. They can hit the palace in Taiwan in 7 minutes from the mainland. And you know what they call aircraft carriers? American aircraft carriers in China?
Targets.
Communist China? Targets. Right? It's like a stupid way. It's a stupid way to conduct warfare with communist China. You don't put big aircraft carriers in the Taiwan Straits and not expect those things not to get shot down. I mean, we should be putting all our money into sea mines ringed around Taiwan if we want to take that democracy seriously, and submarines. Just quiet.
Imagine us taking it seriously. Most politicians are scared to even say the word Taiwan because that recognizes them as a sovereign nation, and China wants you to believe that it's part of China. You can't say it. That's why you never hear anybody say. I mean, I think it was one of the presidents got in trouble for taking a phone call, a congratulatory phone call from the Taiwanese president or prime minister, whatever they have, because we're not supposed to recognize Taiwanese political sovereignty and leadership.
Submarines.
So let me ask you. So you said a lot of different things. You said it's a lot worse than you think it is. When we went and negotiated with them, I was in those rooms and we're sitting with these guys and we're talking to them. They would make all the promises. They would come back. They would literally break every single one of the promises in the negotiation. Outside of that, they got more missiles than anybody else. They can sink a $5 billion with a $1 million missile, and they can, within 7 minutes, attack the Taiwan, palace. All of that stuff is public stuff that we know. Okay, what I want to know is, if you're saying it's worse than what you know, right?
Yeah.
What do we not know that is worse than what we know?
Well, the broad strokes have to do with the elements of, for example, China 2025, which
the Made in China 2025.
Yes, right. And the idea was that strategically they want to take over the key strategic tech sectors that are going to determine the future. So AI is certainly one of them. Blockchain, let's talk about blockchain technology, okay? What we need to know, okay, and I there's certain things I can and cannot say, but the question is, blockchain technology is the technology which is used to encrypt things like Bitcoin and all our banking system. And if you have the key to unlock that blockchain technology as a weapon of warfare, when the time comes, you can bring down the entire financial system of the United States in nanoseconds.
When the time comes.
When the time comes. And when would that time come? For example, Xi Jinping. Okay, you mentioned, some people are saying China's not that doing that great, and they got trouble and this, that, and the other thing. Well, that's dangerous, because if Xi Jinping gets into domestic trouble, the first thing he's going to do is what? You know the expression, wag the dog. Wag the dog is going to mean a run on Taiwan. We're going to have some kind of reaction. And, what do? Do you send carriers into the South China Sea? As soon as one of those sinks, it's game on. Or do you blockade the routes that that oil comes from the Persian Gulf to China? I mean, they're 70% of their oil comes from the Persian. I mean, as soon as that kind of stuff happens, then the asymmetric warfare, what they call the unrestricted warfare, kicks in. That's like knocking. I mean, they have the capability right now. They can knock our satellites out of the sky. They can use viruses probably to take out our electric power grid. And all these balloons that you've seen floating over the United States, that's part of their information gathering process to execute their unrestricted warfare techniques when it's just the only thing holding them back is the fact that we're their cash cow. We're the tit they suck on, right? We're it. We're Uncle Sucker. And the way they lifted 250 million peasants at least up into status of sweatshops was by running big trade surpluses with the United States. So this is like, It goes on and on and on. I wrote this in 2006. It reads like a Pentagon report today, and all we get is rhetoric and BS from the corporate media and the Congress.
So let's stay on that. So these double Ds that China keeps sucking our nipples off of, right?
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a while, and they've flattened a little bit. Okay, the last couple of years, or because now. Especially when Trump was there and you were there, and you tariff after tariff after tariff after tariff. Hey, Huawei CFO was in Canada doing a deal with Iran, and we found out, guess what, Huawei, you're out. Boom, Huawei loses a third of their valuation. Hey, that person's doing what they're doing. Boom. I was in Monaco, and I'm sitting there talking to a pretty connected guy in politics from Lebanon who was doing a lot of the things for the countries there, and he says, you don't even understand the tariffs Trump put on Iran, how much he's hurting Iran's economy right now, how much they're being affected. I'm in this on a daily basis. I'm having these types of conversations to see what's going on. So let's look at both sides. So the only reason why they haven't yet, they can attack Taiwan. They can do this to the, financial system. They can do a cyber attack. They can do all these different sorts of things, right? And hey, the fact that they are going through the bad thing, we got to be careful because the whole wag the dog concept, what's going to happen next. Okay, cool. So why don't they? Well, because they're sucking on our nipples. So if we do put the tariffs and we keep it there and we make them drown to the point of catastrophe happening there, then it's definite that they're going to do something. No?
Yeah, and that's not, look, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a parasitic or symbiotic relationship depending on how you look at it. Because we're not getting stronger from the relationship, but they are. If we stop the relationship, there will be a big effing problem. Because their continued success is predicated on the status quo continuing. So if we decide to end it, we're going to piss them off, probably start a conflict. They'll probably just go right after Taiwan. If we do something where they want to retaliate, that's the simplest thing that you would expect them to do. However, if we wait for them to break the situation up, that means that they have effectuated their plan to stop sucking our nipples, to stop being dependent on us. They have transitioned to sustainable relationships with other countries. They no longer need us. Now they are in the position of full power. We are compromised. We are not ready. We are not initiating the contact or dictating the circumstances of the fallout, and it will be much worse for us. So it is a catch-22. We need to do a soft transition and make this a goal to just like they're transitioning to supplant us and become the dominant power. By 2040, we need to be no longer dependent on China, self-sustaining, but we can still interact with China just to a lesser degree, and we need to diversify our trade partners. Because right now, if we had a conflict with China, it would be a real mess because we get all our shit from China. So how's that going to work?
That's not the goal. The goal is a strong America. And the way you get to that is simply wean yourself from the factory floor of communist China and their supply chains. If we've learned anything from the pandemic, we will be a stronger, more resilient country if we have our manufacturing base and our supply chains here, or at least much closer to here. And China, look, if we totally decoupled from communist China, they'd still grow. I mean, that genie's out of the bottle. They're in Africa. They're in all South America. The Europeans welcome them with open arms. But this is not about that. This is about defending ourselves, peace through strength. And it's peace through economic strength. It's peace through national security. And this whole thing, look,
manufacturing
these
strength.
Folks you talk to, oh, they're hurting Iran, this, that, and the other thing. The problem is, since we've gone at it with half measures, it's actually strengthening Communist China's hand in places like Iran. Why? Because they are using the American sanctions, right? What are financial sanctions? Sanctions are like you can't trade in U.S. dollars if you do X, right? Right. So if
BRICS is coming up
Iran
with their own
gives
currency,
weapons or whatever to the Russians and Ukraine, it's a sanction, whatever. But the problem is that if you are able to create a yuan ruble-based currency system, then you don't have to worry about sanctions. And so every time we've imposed sanctions in a half-measured way, it's given Russia, Iran, and Communist China the incentive to create this alternative currency world. And right now they're going hard at it. I mean, Brazil and Lula, that's like Brazil under Lula is like a colony of the Communist Chinese. Peru is very much at risk as well. And the reason is what they call the debt trap diplomacy. That's where China will come in and they'll just shower these countries with money in order to get infrastructure in there, and there's so much grift associated with it that the leaders will kind of skim off the top and put their Swiss bank accounts in. You turn around, and next thing you know, China forecloses on the port in Sri Lanka, and now they own it. And that's like a strategic naval hub. So, I mean, this is a big three-dimensional chess game, and we're playing checkers.
I want to ask you one more question, and then Tom, I want you, and I think you got some thoughts you want to share. So here's a question on this. So, in a competitive environment, which we are right now, it's a competitive climate that we have, but it's from ideology competitive environment. It's different than capitalism. Capitalism, you're trying to get a market share here, market share there, region, all this other stuff. Politics is the way you think, as well as some resources, right? And they're doing a very good job with getting the right resources, Iran, Africa, they're doing the right things from the competitive standpoint. But if we go back and look at the case study of tariffs, because I am for tariffs in many cases, the part that was for me a bit strange is China not letting any of our media companies be in China, Facebook, YouTube, all this stuff, but we have to use your stuff here. That to me is a dumb negotiation tactics. I'll lift the tariffs if you allow all our social media companies in your country, because we got to know what you got going on. And I'm not lifting these tariffs until you do that, because my concern is we need to know what the hell your people are happy about, not happy about.
Yeah, it's a closed system. Their propaganda machine is closed and ours is open. So China knows exactly what is going on with ours. China can manipulate, and others can, because it's an open platform. However, outside actors with the stranglehold that the CCP has over the internet in China, they can control what goes out. They can also control who is contacting their population and what is coming in. So if the CIA wanted to do some sort of psyop inside China, China is far, far more capable of defending themselves. They're taking advantage of our freedom, and through our freedoms, they are sowing the seeds of tyranny. It's being used against us, and so the idea of being neutral with China while they steal everything from us and destabilize our civilization is kind of crazy, in my opinion. But what do I know? I'm just some idiot on the internet.
But you can find out about our people. You can go on Facebook and see all these videos with George Floyd, the video. It's, oh, my God, look what's going on in USA. Look what's going on in the streets. Look what's going on with Antifa. Look what's going on. Well, great. You have that access to all that data. We don't have access to all that data. So I do think we have to use tariffs in a way for us to get more citizen journalism in China, for us to say, that's how you treat people? We're not for it. That's how you do this? We're not for it. And then we can get more common sense, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of ideology, freedom of all this stuff being injected in China. And then the Chinese people are going to say, look, we don't like the way you're doing this. We got to kind of change. So I think the social media pushing and our media being in China will be my number one thing. That's me. Then the other part is we're giving you all this money. We're not getting it in return. You're winning from us. Now you got 80% of chips. All our ACs are pretty much being made in your country. When COVID happened, you shut down your manufacturing. We couldn't do anything with cars. Car prices went up 45%, 60%. You know, the average car payment today in U.S. went from 4 years ago being $550 to $917 a month when the income hasn't really increased dramatically. That's a massive increase on what's going on. So Americans are now feeling it. But this is the question. How does one, based on the years that you were with President Trump, what did you learn for the next people that are going to come in? And maybe if Trump goes in, or maybe, you know, another person is in the White House and it's not Biden's camp, because you say you have security clearance. Hunter Biden has the kind of clearance you don't even have. And it's a different kind of clearance. It's called a daddy clearance, and you don't have that kind of clearance. So I know you're very excited about your clearance, but his clearance is more effective than yours because he's able to make money off that clearance, and you cannot.
Although you look nice, I'd buy a painting from you.
That's you look like an artist. That's a good point. But going back to it, so imagine.
I paint left-handed, by the way, just to exercise the other part of my brain.
Powerful.
Yeah,
so much the better.
So whoever the next administration is going to be, so whoever the next Peter Navarro of Trump's administration is going to be, or a DeSantis administration is going to be, whoever the next person is going to be, how would you use tariffs and learn from mistakes and things that we did right? So if we had another shot at negotiating with these guys, what would we be asking for? And where's a pain point with them? Well, they'll move.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the best ticket is Trump-DeSantis, where DeSantis does VP for 4 years and then gets 8 more years. And I wish that they can come to some kind of agreement on that. And I wrote about that in my Taking Back Trump's America book, and have urged that publicly. Okay, so to your question, let's first of all be careful about using tariffs as a bargaining chip. For example, China loves that, right? They're very transactional. So
I'm going to actually jump on board with that train. Trump DeSantis, if you want things done, you have two motivated men that can both think independently and accomplish things on their own. So unlike having like a Mike Pence who's just a paperweight, that would actually be a powerful team that could get probably twice as much done as what would otherwise get done with any other pairing. So yeah, DeSantis, he doesn't have a choice. He's not going to get the nom. I mean, there's no way. So he should consider that option if Trump was willing to extend it to him. That would be a good move.
So you could imagine a discussion now with Xi Jinping and Joe Biden. Hey, Xi says to Biden, you get rid of the tariffs on us and we won't sell weapons to Russia. Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That leaves us no better off in terms of the economy than when we started. Let's understand the function of tariffs. What we have in this world writ large, and it's just not, you mentioned Germany, but it's Europe, it's Brazil, it's India, it's Vietnam. We have a world in which virtually all of the major trading partners charge systematically higher tariffs on the United States than we charge on them. Mm-hmm. So I just had a chapter come out in a book that the Heritage Foundation did, which is what are the policies for 2024 for the presidential candidates. And in that, I dusted off from the president's State of the Union speech, I think it was in 2019, the Reciprocal Trade Act, right? The Reciprocal Trade Act simply says that, hey, we'll lower our tariffs to yours, but if you have higher tariffs than ours and you won't lower yours, then we'll raise those to yours.
You think that's effective?
It would be damn effective. You know who has the highest tariffs in the world relative to us? India. Call it the Maharaja of tariffs. But having said that, the function of tariffs is basically to offset unfair trade advantage. Okay, countries in the world, they engage in
Japan has internal tariffs that make it so that even if Ford wants to sell a Ford Focus for $12,000 inside that country. If Toyotas cost 14, then they're going to add a tariff that makes the Ford car more expensive than buying Japanese. It's very simple. Tariffs are specifically targeting like China's currency manipulation, where they make sure that their currency doesn't get too strong or too weak against the dollar. They kind of mirror it. That's manipulated. And so tariffs are the only way to combat someone who's artificially keeping it in a situation where no matter what we do, American businesses can't compete. It will always be cheaper to ship the raw material across the Pacific, manufacture in China, and bring it back. The only way to stop that from being the case, and where corporations only care about money, by extension, the only way to incentivize American corporations outside of altruistic ideas of like, strengthen American infrastructure, the only way to financially incentivize them and the boards and the shareholders to all be in support of moving manufacturing back into the U.S. is if it financially makes sense to their bottom line. And that's the only way it's going to happen. It's only going to be half measures without tariffs.
Export subsidies, the VAT tax versus the income tax. The VAT tax is like a form of an export subsidy that makes it very difficult. China has massive government subsidies. They steal our intellectual property. They force our technology transfer. All that, the whole function of the tariff is to level the playing field for the American worker. The American worker is the most productive in the world and can compete on a level playing field, but not when other countries cheat. Having said all of that, with communist China, it's got to be decoupling. There's no modus vivendi with communist China. They want to kill us. They want this country, and they are in every which way till Sunday. They inundate our universities with sons and daughters of the Chinese Communist Party. They push our kids out, and while they're there, they're wrangled by these Chinese secret police so they don't go off the reservation. And what are they there for? To steal our intellectual property. So it's just we are so naive. I remember back when I got started on all of this, I used to go out and do a lot of public speaking to corporate audience before I got canceled. That's a whole nother issue. And I'd go talk to these trade groups, and these guys would come up, and they grown men in tears saying, "Hey, I went over with this great design to have it produced in China, and by the time I got home, it was in the Walmart under their brand." No, it's like, yeah, well, how stupid is that, right? It's like they're playing a different game. I mean, there's no morals, there's no ethics, there's no rules of capitalism. It's just crush us any way they can. So why would you trade with these people? Why would you do that? There's no reason right now to trade with China. I mean, they've got us, penicillin, we need that. There's certain things we're going to need for a while, but that tells you in and of itself you need to get off that.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch
So let's listen to what Soros is trying to affect.
Denver Nuggets, and they were swept. Last night, the Lakers are playing the Denver Nuggets, and they were swept. And after halftime, it's about 10:30 or something like that, I said, I'm going to watch the Soros documentary because I had nothing better to do. And so it was...
I thought you'd be having cigars. I was wondering which cigar bar I could find you in.
We can take you there right after this. But so we're sitting there, and I'm watching the documentary. This is the 2019 one. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
Go ahead.
You go ahead. If you want to pull it up, this is the one that came out in 2019.
Okay.
If you've not seen it, I think it's worth watching. Now, here's the part. When I watched it, the documentary starts off saying, everything about him, how people in Hungary see him as the devil and all this other stuff, and he is this and he is that, and we don't want him here and we don't want him there, and all these other countries he can't go into. I think he can't go into the Czech Republic. I think it was Poland. I think it was Slovenia and one other country that he couldn't go into. And then the documentary ends selling him as this savior and how I became this. And it's a very interesting documentary. I think you being from where you are, you ought to watch it. So I'm very interested in this guy because his legacy is not going to go away. His son is going to take over, and his son is going to do things and.
But his son is not his father. His son is not smart. He's not like his dad. The legacy is not, and billions of dollars.
You're talking about the 38-year-old.
Yeah.
He's not like his dad.
No.
So, but this is the question I got for you. As a man that's, from there and you live there, how do they view George Soros? Because in this country, in America, the left, this is their God. This is their guy. This is the guy behind closed doors that's making all the decisions, giving money to an open society organization, all these things.
Right.
ESG, DEI, CI. But how does Hungary view him, and how do you view him?
The average plumber probably doesn't have any idea. The administration, I worked for Orban in the 1990s, we can discuss him separately. Orban has very effectively communicated in the media that this guy is anti-West, he's bad for Hungary. So if you've heard of him, you think he's a bad guy.
In Hungary?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, kicking out the Central University from
top
Budapest.
down? Is it from top down?
No. I think the massive people
I got you.
who, right? But if you live in the big cities, if you follow politics,
right.
If you're not, they've destroyed. Orban has very effectively destroyed the left in Hungary. There isn't really much of an opposition left. He had a 2/3 majority of the parliament. He managed to change the constitution, bring back Christianity, and all kinds of great things. So the majority of people, if they know of him, know that he's a bad guy. Because Orban has been very good in his, let's just say, information operations.
Got it. So, but why is he a bad guy?
Why? Because he hates what the West is. I mean, he took.
What is the Stop Soros law in Hungary? The so-called Stop Soros legislation, which was passed in June 2018 by the Hungarian parliament, outlawed helping illegal immigrants claim asylum and apply for residence inside the country, with punishments up to a year in prison for anyone charged with the offense. George Soros is, if you look into him, he seems to be anti-human and anti-West, and this came from a really bad experience that his mother had that made her hate people and humanity, and she passed that mindset along to him, and with great wealth, he has been able to push that agenda, and his legacy is decidedly questionable at best, and depending on your perspective, you could say that he is bent on the destruction of certain things that he doesn't like.
Took Karl Popper's concept of open society when he studied under Popper in the UK, and he completely perverted it into, I will decide what is good. I will pick, it's like, Gnosticism, right? The heresy. We have the secret knowledge. It's a little bit like the bad version of Straussian politics. A very small coterie of individuals know what is good for everyone, and we will decide, and we will pick. I mean, it's like the 70 prosecutors in America. What has he done here? He doesn't have to win presidential elections. Where's the real power in America? It's local. It's when you can put $1 million into Alvin Bragg's race in New York, a man who campaigned on, I'm going to put Donald Trump in prison. That's power. When you put dozens and dozens of your prosecutors who are radicals who hate America into power to put criminals back on the streets, to say, we need equity, not equality. That moment from, what was it, the Bill Maher interview with Bernie Sanders.
Bernie, I don't know the difference.
What's the difference? Tell me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
excuse what? You're Bernie. You don't know the difference, Bernie? Well, guess what? George Soros knows the difference, and he is building equity by destroying people in America.
Why though? Why?
What?
Why does he want to do that? So what I wanted to get into this, guys, to see what.
Well, look. Have you seen the interview that they deep sixed of him on CBS or ABC when they asked him about what you did during the war? I think that a lot of that is why. I mean, you got to understand, this is a Jewish kid.
Can you find this?
I mean, if you find it in 10 minutes, I'm going to be impressed. Okay, he's asked on camera about what he did during World War II in Hungary as a 15-year-old, and how he worked with the Nazis to collect the wealth of the Jews, of his fellow Jews, to collect the wealth before they were sent to the labor camps and the death camps. And the interviewer says, do you feel any remorse for this? And he actually laughs. The guy laughs.
I saw that.
6 million people killed, and you're part of the initial phase of rounding them up by collecting their wealth before they get put on the cattle carts. And you laugh. Dude, if you're trying to deal with that, if you're conscious...
The media is going to try to confuse you as to why Elon Musk said that he reminds him of a supervillain and compared him to Magneto. If you only listen to what they tell you about him, you'll have no idea why he said that. And a lot of people either feign confusion or have genuine confusion about why that statement was made. But his history pretty clearly shows that he's not a great guy. He's a very wealthy man, but wealth does not generally actually doesn't equate with altruistic and good and someone who's helping humanity. Usually they're robbing. They're robber barons. That's how they get that rich. I mean, come on. Anybody that believes that you get that rich most of the time through being a good person and doing the right thing is literally still in kindergarten for all intents and purposes.
is eating you up for the last 60 years, that you helped the Nazis and you're a Jew. There's all kinds of things you could do.
Is this the one you're talking about?
It looks like it, yeah. All right, you got an Oliva from me. Nicely done.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all.
Look at his face.
Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
You're better than the guy Joe Rogan uses. You're quicker. You're quicker.
So
I mean, that could you imagine doing that as a what you're a Syrian Christian?
A Syrian Christian.
Imagine you're helping as a 14-year-old persecute the Syrian Christians.
Yeah, so I'm really trying to figure out his motive, though. Like, what is the motive, though? As a globalist, I get it. So
look, I can't get inside his head. I do not want to go to that, Dantean sixth circle of hell. But what's the motive for the left today? We were discussing this before we went live. Forget party politics. Forget, R&D. I realized this a long time ago. This nation is separated by one question. Do you love America, or is America the problem? It's that simple.
That's very succinct.
Is America bad, or is it great? He and everybody else who works with him at the Open Society Foundation and works for Alvin Bragg believe.
So this is the clear division between the people that are behind the idea of making America great again and the people that want to just outright destroy it without you really even understanding that that's their goal. They don't say it out loud. They make it seem like they're trying to help you by bastardizing the culture and removing all the good things about it until it truly is as bad as they want to claim it is, and then they will be able to convince you that it must be destroyed after they actually destroy it when it was previously good.
America is the problem. And also they have white guilt. Even if you're not Jewish, you have white guilt. How does BLM start, getting, 5 different mansions for its founder, if not white guilt? The problem in America is racism. You know what the problem? It is racism, but who are the racists? The white liberals. Those are the people who are the problem in America because they hate themselves and they hate this country. If you think America is the problem, it explains everything. Open borders.
They hate themselves and everyone who looks like them. So that's why we're all guilty. Guilt by self-proclamation, not even anybody else accusing us. Our own, it's from within. It's so crazy.
Right? It explains, why we're doing deals with Iran. It explains everything. It is hatred of America that is the key question. Do you love it or do you hate it?
What's the antonym of George Soros?
We don't have one. You discussed this yesterday.
I want to know from you because you're in this world.
Yeah, we had Sheldon Adelson, who passed last year. This is the big problem on the right, is that we have people with money who spend it on garbage. I mean, seriously, another full-page ad in the Washington Times, that's not going to move the needle anywhere. We have not been playing the culture war. We haven't look at what is being done in the mainstream media. The only guy who could be is Elon. But he's not a conservative.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast,
you don't need to be a conservative anymore to be in opposition to them. You just have to like America, not even love it. Anyone with a rational mind who doesn't believe that America is the #1 problem in the world is not aligned with their values. So I would say that there's a lot of people that, because of how crazy they've gotten, have become their enemy as they move into territory that no one wants to follow them into. Even their supporters who don't understand that they're trying to actually destroy America are not going to follow them down this road. This is absolute lunacy. Like these people are full-blown insane sociopaths. You just saw the guy laugh about robbing his relatives of all their wealth and doing so before watching them depart to a place that was going to be worse than death, but would ultimately result in their death in most cases. So anyway, we can win, we can fight. Enough evil will coalesce the forces of good. We will stand up together, we will fight this, we will beat this. Evil does not prevail. Good always prevails. But sometimes a lot of evil is allowed to develop before people stand up and react to it. And I think that we are fast approaching people realizing all the lies and the manipulation and the mistreatment of Americans, the misappropriation of funds, the billions that have been put in the pockets of evil people and are now being deployed in order to F you over as hard as possible. So, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.